Great to be with you guys here today as everybody's coming in. Wait for everybody get in the room here. Of course, I'm Scott Royal Smith, the owner of Royal Legal Solutions, and we'll be sharing a lot of great content with you guys here today. So sit tight here while we get everything up and running, and to get everybody that's planning on coming today, we'll trickle in here, and we'll get everything up and running.
Hello.
Hey, Yonah, how we doing?
Hello. Hi, Scott.
Excellent. We are live here with our group here. Yeah. I was just waiting here for us to get everything loaded up, and I know everybody's kind of trickling into the room here for us to be able to do that. And I think Tammy is finalizing the setup of the presentation pieces for us here. Just long to get that loaded in, and then we'll get started on that piece. Does that sound good?
Okay, wonderful.
Excellent.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. Great to be here with you today. Been doing a lot of podcasting and info sharing today, and this is a great way to wrap up my day here with a great webinar. So looking forward to it. Excellent. I think she's telling me now that she's loading in the presentation, and then we'll have this started here in just a second. All right, there we go. And there's our slide number 1. And guys, we also have because we have our chat box going in here. I'm talking to Coz over here. He's calling me a brainiac. I appreciate it, brother. This is the Royal Legal Solutions Company logo. We have the castle logo that you guys can see here. That's on the presentation slide. And then this big brain that's behind me is actually an artist friend of mine made this. This is all hand drawn. Where she actually created that. And then I bought it off of her, and I love it. It's one of my favorite pieces on there. So it's quite a special piece for me. I'm a big proponent of thinking that, as an investor, as an attorney, as what we do, that really we're the sum total as what we are as our ideas, the ideas that we can bring to the table and our knowledge. In a very real sense, we're connecting with each other, and here we're really connecting, in a really strange way. It's our brains that are actually deciding to connect with each other, right? And then our value that we have to each other is in some ways connected to the types of ideas that we're able to bring to the table for everybody. So that's one of the things that I strongly believe as an entrepreneur as well as an advisor for people. So thank you for the brainiac comment. I accept that humbly. So guys, let's go ahead and kick this off for us here today. I'm going to go ahead and move us over to the next slide. So I have a ton of great information to share for you guys. This is information that is strictly reserved for people that are looking to build wealth in real estate, which is the hands down the number one way to build financial freedom, guys. I mean, if you're in real estate and you're with it long enough and you're thinking through it and working hard at it, you're almost guaranteed to become a millionaire or have the cash flow that millionaires have from the real estate. I'm a longtime real estate investor myself, and I'm also an asset protection attorney. And like many of you, I chose real estate because it's safer than stock markets, and it's something I can control. And with stock markets, you can have a crash at any time. And real estate is one of those things that's more or less foolproof. You make your money on the front end, and making sure the property's cash flow correctly, the value of the property can go up or down, but you're covering your mortgage each month. So kind of you're in a position here that's so much better than every other type of investor out there. But unfortunately, what they don't tell you in the guru workshops that has that kind of methodology that I just laid out for you is that it's really not all that simple. That real estate can have its own sort of crash, but it's not like how lawsuit or how stock markets crash, right? In real estate context, you can have the up and downs in the market, but you're cash flowing, and so you're safe. But you can have these catastrophic things happen in the form of lawsuits. And lawsuits are real estate's own form of crash because they happen unexpectedly and they can wipe out your wealth. What a lot of investors are shocked to find out about is that insurance is not enough to protect yourself from lawsuits. And I'll explain more why about this in a few minutes. But the good news is that you can get fully protected today and not ever have to worry about lawsuits ever again. Seriously, you can make yourself litigation proof just like the uber rich have been doing for years. And the secret is that wealthy people don't own things. They control companies that own things. But why do you have to jump through all these extra hoops, you ask? And who is it that's out to get us? And the answer to that is the lawsuit attorneys. They're everywhere. They're searching for disgruntled tenants, contractors, or whoever else they can bring to file lawsuits. And you've seen these guys before, right? Those are the people that are on the billboards, they're on the TVs, they're on the radio. They're looking for people so that they can bring claims to file these lawsuits, and they're looking for that easy payday. So that's why one of the things I'll be showing you today is the Royal Protection System, which is how we build a castle of protection around you, brick by brick, from the ground up. So what they don't tell you is that actually the more wealth you have in real estate, the more likely you are to get sued. And by a show of hands here, guys, if you look here onto the dialog box, and you can see that there's a way that you can raise your hand. And if you're in here, if you can just raise your hand if you're new to the real estate, you're new to this real estate industry. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so there's quite a few new people in here today, and that's great. And the reason I ask is because for the people who are new or have somehow managed to be lucky so far, it's just you're not familiar with the pain of lawsuits. Most people think that you have to do something to be sued, and the reality is that on the survey of the national data taken straight from the courts, that over a 20-year period, you have a 95% chance of being sued with a major lawsuit. So the key here is that the risk is spread out over 20 years, so you won't know when it's going to happen or when the trouble is going to arise. It's just out there, and what makes it worse is that if you own assets with somebody else as a general partnership, like you and your buddy are both owning title to the assets in your personal names, the odds of that lawsuit double, because that means that anything that happens in either one of your personal lives means that now your asset that you own together is jeopardized. That's why you should never own assets as a general partnership. So, I mean, you might think that this can neither happen to you, and one of my clients actually, thought the same thing, and they had a huge umbrella policy. Wasn't my client at the time, but eventually became one. And he was very well insured. He had the umbrella policy, and he lost over $3 million from a single lawsuit. So just let that sink in a minute. All that time, the money and the effort that he spent building his portfolio, and then poof, it's gone from a single lawsuit. What he didn't realize is that insurance only protects you from lawsuits that are based upon negligence, which is really just a fancy legal term for an accident. So what he was told when he was talking to counselors and CPAs and online is that an umbrella policy was going to protect him. But they didn't tell him is that it's actually very limited protections. Now, it's the most common type of lawsuit that will happen for you around negligence and in these accidents, right? But there's a large segment of lawsuits that happen for all the other types of liability. Negligence is only one. There's over 100 different types of legal liability you can incur, like fraud, breach of contract, a car accident that exceeds the limits of liability of your insurance policy, and many, many others that your insurance policy won't cover. And he didn't know that. And when he faced the lawsuit, he thought that his insurance policy was going to step in to protect him, and he found out very painfully that it didn't, and it wiped out over $3 million of his insurance from one blow there. So now there are people out there who don't need asset protection. The thing is those people aren't investors. Every real estate investor absolutely needs asset protection. With services like Data Tree and others, it literally takes less than 60 seconds to identify every property you own in your name or your LLCs. And we regularly perform these searches as part of what we do to test the privacy and security of our clients. The way that you can see this is that you just merely, if you call us up and go through a consultation, we can show you live on the call exactly how easy it is, of how much of your information is really out there that can just easily be found, to be able to show you where your vulnerabilities really lie. So there's, you might think that that you don't care whether your information is out there, but I can tell you it's the number one way that people decide whether they want to sue you or not, is based upon whether they know if you have assets. So your information actually out there confirms for them that you're actually a good target. So right now we have about 2,000 clients all across the country who enjoy not having their name associated with their company on the public records, and that nobody can find out that they own any properties. And with this type of anonymity, if anybody ever looks to sue them, what you find is that those lawsuits are never even filed, because you don't sue somebody that looks like they don't own anything. So I'm sure that many of you have explored these topics before, but just as a guess, I'm just going to throw this out there, that not only did the subject matter get really confusing very quickly, but you are probably annoyed by all of the conflicting information out there from the so-called experts, right? And it's actually surprisingly difficult in today's day and age, with all the information that's out there, to really find a professional who really understands your business and your needs, your asset protection needs. Most of the time, these types of professionals are extremely expensive. That's even assuming you can find the right person, in the first place. I'm not bragging when I say that I'm not surprised that as a real estate investor, you haven't been able to find that person before. It's the reason that I started this company was because I was a real estate investor myself, and because I kept running into investors that didn't know what they should be doing. And so that's when, I started to work with them to develop these really powerful solutions that you're able to enjoy here today. So, at Royal Legal Solutions, we get calls all the time from investors who say they searched for professionals like me and this company for years before they've ever heard me on one of the many, many podcasts I'm on, or seen one of the articles that I publish, either on Bigger Pockets or through our website. I publish maybe 100 plus articles a year on these topics. And I made this webinar to show you exactly what steps to take, and no matter where you live and no matter where you own the assets. So the asset protection is no longer just for the wealthy. And today's day and age, it's actually for the average investor. Anybody that has 2 or more properties has a way to get ironclad asset protection. In fact, I regularly have clients who set up their company structure at the outset when they're just getting started, because what they want to do is they want to grow their asset protection with the portfolio that they're seeking to acquire. So if you can plan for the end in mind, plan yourself 3-5 years out, and be able to think that far into the future of what will the needs I have in 3 to 5 years be. What you can do is set up foundations that are going to allow you to grow in line way to achieve the maximum protections and the anonymity of ownership, with only one company to maintain, with one bank account, one set of books, and one tax filing. It's never been simpler and easier to protect what you're working so hard to build and grow than it is right now with the kinds of solutions that we have at Royal Legal Solutions. So let's just take a closer look here at the Royal Protection Plan. The first step is just creating the elite level protection to make yourself and your business unattractive to the target. The goal is to make it look like you don't own anything, and like you wouldn't even qualify to buy a toaster on credit, right? When it's done correctly, it stops lawsuits before it even starts, because since plaintiff attorneys are only looking for people that are easy targets, one that they can know what they can get, absolutely will know that they're not going to get paid trying to come after you. How do they know that? Because from all the searching they're going to do, from the tools that I can show you, from the same tools that private investigators use, it'll look like you don't own anything. So they're going to believe that they're not going to get paid. So one way to accomplish this level of anonymity to stop lawsuits before it starts is to use a Wyoming LLC, which has upfront and yearly costs. Another way to accomplish this anonymity is a trust. Trusts are private documents, so nobody can find out who owns the trust. And you can start protecting yourself using a trust strategy for as little as just $500. For $500, you can take your piece of real estate, you can transfer it into a trust, and now the asset's going to be owned anonymously. Because it's a transfer to a trust, you can avoid the due on sale clause. Because it's a trusts are exempt from due on sale clause considerations, and you can move yourself into a much better protected position by doing so. What we do is every brick that we do, starting with the fundamentals of using the land trust to create the anonymity and avoid the due on sale clause, is a brick. And the way that we view protections is that you don't have to build the full suite of everything all at one time. You can build your protections on it brick by brick. And if it's done with the right strategy in mind, you never have to redo anything ever. So this is a system that's going to last you for the rest of your life, and that you can build on it as when it makes sense. So that's step number one. The Royal Protection System has 5 steps altogether, and each one builds on the last, kind of like Legos, build one on top of the other. So now here's a fact that a lot of investors don't know, and that's that transferring assets into a trust doesn't just create the anonymity, is that it bypasses the due on sale clause that I was talking about. If you just walk into your local meetup group or REI group, that's something that's going to blow people away that they don't know about. And now you have a special piece of knowledge that other people are going to seek you out for just because you attended this webinar here today. So for anyone who doesn't know, the due on sale clause is a stipulation in a mortgage that says that any time that you would transfer the asset from one party to another, that the bank could accelerate that note, making it fully due and payable. So for a lot of people, they can't transfer, or they believe they can't transfer their assets from their personal name directly into an LLC because they're worried about the due on sale clause. If you use a trust that's owned by the LLC, and here's a sneak peek to one of the pieces we're going to get to later on, is that you can create the anonymity and you can have the asset protection you're looking for. But because trusts are exempt from the due on sale clause considerations, we're able to navigate that loophole. So fortunately, the transfers to this trust have been carved out from the due on sale clause considerations. And if it's done correctly, you should be able to avoid the property valuation reassessment, excise taxes, transfer taxes, since this style of transfer to a land trust will qualify and is exemption for an estate planning purpose. So now, just for clarification, all we've done at this point of just transferring the asset to the land trust is create the anonymity and avoid a bunch of fees and taxes, as well as avoid the due on sale clause. The trust alone, the land trust alone, provides no protection. To protect your assets, we have to pair the trust with a company structure, an LLC, in order to ward off those lawsuits. Okay, guys? So that's our next step, is that you combine the land trust with an LLC. And if you're wondering why we do it, it's simple. The land trust grants you anonymity from the public records, and a lawsuit won't get started if the lawyer doesn't know who the property owner is, and the land trust blocks them from linking the property to you. If they can't find out what the extent of what they're going to get from the lawsuit, they just won't proceed with it. If a lawsuit ever did get off the ground, which is highly unlikely, you'd still be protected because of your LLC would make sure the lawsuit against you doesn't touch the property LLC. This is what the rich people do. They don't own the properties anymore. Their LLCs and their company structure does. And this is where we're saying that you don't own the property anymore at this point. Your company structure would. So a lawsuit against the LLC doesn't touch you, right? So now if there's a lawsuit against one of your properties, they can't sue you, and a lawsuit against you, they can't come after the LLC. So you can see that we're using this type of structure in order to not only provide the protection, but it's also the ability to be able to accomplish the anonymity that we're seeking. So What I'll show you in step 3 of the Royal Protection Plan is how to compartmentalize every asset so you can make it into the smallest pot possible. I'm going to show you how you can do this for free and scale it infinitely without complicating your operations, your banking, your taxes, or your insurance. And this all sound good to you guys, because remember that everything we're creating here does not complicate your life in any manner whatsoever. Every one of my clients has to do 2 things, and that's first they have to find great deals, and then they collect on the money and keep track of it, and with their accounting, that's it. We take care of everything else. All you do is notify us when you close on a property. We transfer it into the company, maintain all of the yearly records, all of the yearly maintenance, all the yearly filings, all of that is done for you. We're on call at no additional charge for all of our clients. So every single one of your questions gets answered by a professional directly. And I built Royal Legal Solutions as this one-stop shop for real estate investors. So if you have any questions at any time about your investing or company structure, I know we'll have the answers. And if you don't, I know that we have a network to be able to find the answers out for you. We have a network of over 2,000 investors that are clients. So anything that comes up, we've worked with people that have encountered the same types of issues you're dealing with. You can get the expert advice from me or from our network. And this really leads us to the point of saying that with the Royal Protection System in place, you can expect your insurance to be able to cover the 80% of the headaches that are associated with real estate investments, like those nuisance lawsuits and frivolous claims. And it's the other 20%. It's those worst case scenarios that your insurer would refuse to cover. And that's where your elite kind of asset protection steps into place. It's because it covers you when your insurance policy doesn't, right? Guys, it's just an aside here. That's what I did for years, was suing insurance companies that would deny claims for doctors. So what you would find is that these insurance companies, they always pay out really small claims, but whenever the claims would get big, that's their business model, is that they collect premiums and deny coverage, especially when claims get and anything that's outside of their just standard models of what they pay out on, they just summarily deny them. And so that's actually whole business we had, was suing insurance companies that weren't paying out claims that they legitimately owed to doctors. So when I talk about insurance companies not wanting to pay, I have firsthand knowledge of that from my litigation experience. So now, when we're talking about asset protection being put in place, we're utilizing strategies that are actually going to save you money right from the very beginning. So let's talk about the Series LLC. Are any of you guys familiar with the Series LLC? Go ahead and raise your hand here if you happen to be. Okay, a couple of people. What I love about the Series LLC is that it lets you scale your business for free while still providing maximum protection. With all the banking, income, and accounting streamlined through one company, your operations remain exactly the same as they are right now, even though your business would, keep growing. So this brings us to the next step of the Royal Legal Solutions here, is that's using the Series LLC with the anonymous trusts and the land trust. So we have 2 different trusts that we're using here with the Series LLC, and that also applies to a parent-child structure. I just want to take an aside here, guys. If you look here at the top of the presentation, if you text Royal over to the number 474747 here at any time during the presentation, it's going to be located here at the top of each slide. We're going to send you guys the top 10 things you need to know about asset protection. It's our ebook that goes through, the top 10 strategies that we see real estate investors use. So just go ahead and text that over to Royal to 474747, and we can go ahead and send that to you, now or at any time during the presentation. And I'll have also some more information about what we're about to go into here, which is the Series LLC and as it applies to the parent-child structure and how we're going to use trust with that. So what this looks like, guys, is that there's one company that's filed with the state using one EIN number, and then we call that the parent company, and it can create an unlimited number of children. We call each of these a child series. Each child series acts like an individual LLC in every way, providing the same asset protection as an individual LLC. The lawsuit against one child series won't affect the other children or the parent. We can also make that parent LLC anonymously owned by using a trust, just like we use a land trust to hold title to the actual real estate for the public records on the county clerk's land rolls. We can use a trust that owns the LLC for the public records, for the public disclosure with the Secretary of State. So not only is your company held anonymously, but your properties are also held anonymously by using these trust structures. So the anonymous trust and the LLC filings will also all write back to Scott Royal Smith Esquire. So anybody that has questions about the company ownership, it all relates back to me, and all of that information is then protected by the attorney-client privilege. So legally, they can't even ask for the information, and we can't provide it. So we're using the trust structures to create the anonymity. We use the LLC to provide the protection, and anything that relates back to who created these entities or where they located all relates back to a law firm. So now that's all protected by the attorney-client privilege. So the Series LLC is a secure structure that's been battle tested by thousands of lawsuits over the past 20 years. Nobody has even tried to challenge the legitimacy of the structure. There's no case law on it. The laws about those Series LLC are so strong that there's nothing left for a judge to interpret to be able to create the case law. And here's another advantage that many investors are unaware of, is that you can establish a Series LLC of one of 12 different states and use that in the other state for asset protection. So the Royal Protection System has two critical steps that we need to go over. But first, let me tell you a little bit more about myself and how this system came about. Because there's even further nuances of how do you want to leverage the law, not just in saying how do we use anonymous trusts and how do we use a Series LLC. It can also matter where you form and how you put it into place. But I'd like to tell you guys and just share with you a little bit about me, so you can know, who it is that you're listening to here today. So if you haven't heard of me, my name is Scott Royal Smith. I graduated from Albany Law School and began my career in high stakes lawsuits against insurance companies. And that's how I learned the key secrets is how to defeat lawsuits, is that they're actually a business. I stop lawsuits before they even start by taking away the financial incentives required for plaintiffs' attorneys to proceed. But I'm not just a lawyer, and I'm an active real estate investor myself. And to build the ironclad asset protection for my clients, I use a combination of legal expertise, my passion as an investor, and really my love just for helping others protect their business and protect their wealth. So clients who employ my strategies actually intend to stay out of court altogether. Because what we do is we shift the game by making ourselves so strong that people don't even want to come after us, right? And ultimately, that's what the name of the game is. So right now you might be thinking, that's great, Scott, but I'm genuinely an honest person. I'm one of the good guys, and I really don't expect to be sued. And the problem with that way of thinking is that honestly doesn't stop lawsuits. In many, many cases, lawsuits are caused by simple misunderstandings. And I'll give you an example. I recently represented a client who had a lawsuit threatened against her for over $75,000 because of a single email exchange regarding the plumbing underneath a house. It's the difference between what she said in the email and what the recipient inferred was all it took for it to end up in court. And you think that can't happen to you? Really, that's really saying, if you don't think that can happen to you, you're really saying that I don't think that somebody else can misunderstand me. And which we all know is not the case. We can't control whether people understand this 100% or not. And those types of lawsuits are allegations of fraud, right? People had a misunderstanding. They said, you defrauded me. When reality is, it's two honest people just communicating each other, and that there's a simple misunderstanding. And the reason I know is because it happens all the time. And so the real question is, why don't all real estate investors know about these asset protection strategies? And why isn't every attorney up to speed on this stuff I think they should be? And I can't speak for other attorneys, but what I can tell you is I'm one of the very few who started out as suing insurance companies. That experience armed me with a deep understanding of the business structure and how lawsuits worked and what it takes to stop them before they start. There's also very few attorneys that have an experience with real estate investing over a number of years, and that's exclusively work with real estate investors all over the country. Actively investing for over 8 years has taught me a lot. Being an attorney specializing with real estate investors only in asset protection for a number of years has also taught me a lot. It's combined the knowledge of the firsthand experience and the legal knowledge I've needed to build Royal Legal Solutions. And this is why, what I've used to be able to develop the Royal Protection System. So, by the way, just what you've learned so far about anonymous trust and series LLC, the way they work together to hide your assets and protect your wealth, just knowing this puts you in the top 1% of elite level investors. I've already given you so far, guys, the playbook to protect yourself. But there's 2 more steps to run through. And I know they're just going to blow you away if you're not already blown away already. And the reason I say this is because most people aren't just looking to protect their wealth for themselves. They want to protect their legacy, their children, their family, their communities, their charities, the things that they care about. And so there's another step that you must take to ensure your wealth funds your legacy when you die. And if you don't do this, the state can swoop in and take it, right? Or make those decisions for you. The secret here is that you need to have an estate plan. And what I'm going to share with you next is how you can get it done once and for all, and you can complete it all within inside of 30 minutes. Sound good? Excellent. So this is step 4 of the Royal Protection System, and it's incorporating your estate plan. So how many of you out here have an estate plan? Yeah, a couple of people. And how many, when's the last time anybody's ever updated it? Yeah. I'm going to bet most people that have actually established their estate plan out here haven't really updated it. And in some level, it's obsolete. Well, if you currently have an estate plan, I can almost guarantee that it's out of date or incomplete, and that's really bad news. The good news is, whether you have it or not, there's a simple solution for creating an estate plan once and for all and making sure that it never goes obsolete. You'll never have to update it or worry about it unless you want to make a change. And here's how it works. You hold all of your assets inside of your Series LLC. Then you have your Series LLC owned by your living trust as part of your estate plan. So this is what that looks like, guys, if you look at this diagram. And just bear in mind that every good estate plan has at least 2 parts. It has a living trust and it has a pour over will. So the living trust dictates who gets what, and the pour over will is a simple 1-page will that says anything not put into the living trust, pour it into the living trust and distribute it as stated therein. And the living trust makes it so your assets avoid a court proceeding called probate when you die. And this becomes really exceptionally important because when assets get caught up in a court proceeding, this is when they can get go obsolete in terms of insurance might not be getting paid, rent might not be being collected, etc. If you do it this way, what happens is that your entire company structure owns all of your assets, and they pass from your living trust, which owns the ownership of the property, directly to your heirs. You completely avoid the court system, and you don't have to worry about anything going wrong after you die. So everybody with me so far? And are you guys ready for the final step here? Because this is really where people's eyes light up, and this is for step 5, and this is locking down the complete protection by using a shell company to transact the business, folks. And if you really want to up your game to ultimate protection, where you don't even care about lawsuits anymore because you're bulletproof, you need to set up a shell corporation. And let me be clear, there's absolutely nothing shady about shell corporations. Corporations use them, major corporations and companies use them all the time, and now you can use them too. So at Royal Legal Solutions, we refer to shell corporations as an operating company. And this is where you handles all of your day-to-day operations. It's your face to the world. So it's the landlord of your properties. It signs contracts. It does your business dealings. It's where you send your emails through. If anything goes wrong, you won't be exposed to the lawsuit. It falls upon the operating company. Your worst case scenario is that you wind down that operating company and you start up a new one. So that's what you're looking for, is that kind of protection. That's how you can really not care about lawsuits. So the Series LLC with the anonymity in place protects your assets. Your shell operating company protects you personally with all of your business dealings. And here's the outline, guys. So what you'll see here is a couple of key pieces, guys. You'll have your Series LLC here. That's at this part. This is where you actually hold all of the assets. This is the parent Series LLC that's filed with the state. It's going to be owned by an anonymous trust. So now when people search the company, the public records, they can't see that that you actually own this company. This anonymous trust is then owned by your living trust as part of your estate plan. So then now everything below it seamlessly passes to your heirs, and this can hold all of your real estate as well as your stocks, cash, etc. Anything that you forgot to put inside of the living trust will be caught by your pour over will, which will simply state that anything that wasn't put in the trust, I just want you to move it into the trust and distribute it accordingly. This right here is the shell operating company that you'll run your active business through. Notice that these are two completely separate companies. What we want to do is create a high wall of separation between these two companies. That way, if there's a lawsuit here, it can't touch what's happening. A lawsuit here with this shell operating company, it can't touch anything that's happening over here with your asset holding company. These boxes down here is an advanced strategy we use with using a solo 401k to help shelter your active income from taxes, which you can then loan up to $55,000 a year, split between half of it being loaned to yourself personally and half being used to invest and overall increasing your returns with that. So I know that's an exciting approach for you guys here. I'm going to clear that whiteboard. So I just want to make one thing clear to you guys, that everything I've laid out for you guys so far, all 5 parts of the Royal Protection System, this is all proprietary information that I have about asset protection and estate planning to integrate this into a synergistic system together. Everybody else that I've worked with and every other company that I've seen out there has one piece or another. I'm the first guy to come through and present it to the public here as one synergistic system that every real estate investor should be using to protect themselves, protect their judgments, save on taxes, streamline everything underneath one estate plan. And we set up everything in Royal's Legal Solutions from start to finish for them. So this is a special thing, guys. So what I want to give you guys here is just a real world example of one of my clients that we had before about that we talked a little bit before about how people can have miscommunications and how easy that really can happen, and then how you get these lawsuits for fraud that your insurance company doesn't cover. So what happened here is that one of my clients was selling a multi-unit property, and the buyer asked what plumbing underneath the house has been replaced. And my client and her real estate agent responded by email that all the plumbing had been replaced, and they were referring to the plumbing that was underneath the house. So you fast forward 6 months after the sale, and the buyer was on a month-long vacation. A leak sprung in the bathroom wall on the second floor. The water ran, and it completely flooded the whole house, resulting in $75,000 in damage. And when the buyer returned, who do you think they blamed, right? They blamed my client, of course. As far as the buyer was concerned, my client had misrepresented that all of the plumbing in the house was replaced, and that included the plumbing in the upstairs bathroom. But and this was an allegation of fraud, which is never covered by insurance. Now, granted, my client is an honest person. They really thought they were only referring to the plumbing that was underneath the house, but you can see this is just a simple misunderstanding over email, which would survive all the way through a jury trial. So I only bring that up to show you guys how easily these types of things can happen, and really to underscore the point of that you can never be careful enough to know that somebody else isn't going to misunderstand you and that a lawsuit won't happen, right? Well, all we can do is game plan around thinking, when this happens, because somebody's going to misunderstand me at some point, what position am I going to be in? Because you can't just be honest enough for bad things not to happen to you. That's not the way that this works. So long story short, with that type of situation, my client actually had the asset protection that I've recommended for you guys here today, and we got the lawsuit completely dropped because of the series protections and the operating agreement protections that we had in place. The other side looked at the lawsuit. My client actually wanted to settle the case. I told him not to. And these structures allowed us to use the legal leverage to get the lawsuit completely dropped. So this is what I mean about, lawsuits are a business. If you make it hard enough for people to come after you, what you find is that they eventually just don't come after you at all. So she was completely thrilled by the whole thing. And I have a whole bank of stories that are like that that they're all over the royallegalsolutions.com website, testimonies from my clients. And, we have amazing Google reviews, and everywhere, people seem to love everything that we do. So you might be asking yourself at this point, if this is such a terrific system, why haven't you heard of it before? And for starters, that's because even though the Series LLC has been around for 20 years, it's still considered the cutting edge of the legal world. Legal people and lawyers are always behind the cutting edge of what's useful. They're, typically not good business people, right? They're usually known as deal killers, right? I'm one of the few attorneys that's also a business person as well as an investor, and that uniquely positions me to be able to see where are the advantages of what we can be using in this field. And it's a relatively small niche to say the least. There's only a handful of experts like myself in the country because of those pieces that I just talked about before. And another thing to keep in mind is that it's a dirty little secret of the legal profession that most attorneys are not inclined to learn something new unless the circumstances force them to. They know what they know, and they design their practice to be able to crank out the same thing over and over and over again so they can rack up a ton of billable hours, and they don't have to do the hard work of developing new systems. I'm not saying that they're bad people. It's just a fact that most attorneys have one specialty, and that's what they focus on. And this point was really hammered home for me during the 8 years I spent doing aggressive litigation work. So I made learning new things and staying ahead of the asset protection curve my specialty. And it's how I distinguished myself from the pack to best serve my clients. So unless you met someone who worked with this very specific method of asset protection, you've never had the pleasure of learning about it, guys. So like I said earlier, you don't need to be Warren Buffett to keep your hard-earned wealth safe from predatory lawyers looking for easy money. You don't need to own 100 properties, but before putting these systems in place, the Series LLC with the structure that I've designed and outlaid for you here with the anonymity trust it's affordable to the average investor with 2 or more properties. And obviously we're here today because wealth protection is something on the top of your mind, for you and for myself. And that it's what you need to be able to mitigate the risk in your life, to put the law on your side and protect everything you're working to build, so it can really grow for you and leave a meaningful legacy for your future. And with that in mind, let me tell you a little bit more about it here. So it's depending on your situation. This is not a cookie cutter system, right? Even the diagrams that for you here, that's 90% of what applies for most everybody. And there's still some tweaking that needs to happen for each individual person. So we typically will always start with a Series LLC in combinations with a land trust to provide the protection anonymity. That Series LLC is infinitely expandable, and you can use it anywhere in the United States at no additional cost. And you can compare that to the high upfront and yearly cost of having multiple LLCs, and you'll immediately see that there's incredible savings out of the gate. Now, depending upon the level of protection you're looking to achieve, we use estate planning and shell corporations to make it so you're virtually bulletproof to lawsuits and judgments. So depending on your situation, there's a number of options that are available for you. And if you just think about it for a minute, what if you never had to worry about a lawsuit? And what if you never had to think about that deranged tenant calling you up and screeching about damages, and you could just hang up on them? And what if every email you fired off in haste, you weren't scrambling, to think about, oh man, did I say the wrong thing there? Or am I exposed to liability about that? And what if you could just have the peace of mind knowing that you can operate in the world and sleep better at night and not have to have these types of worries? My guess is that a couple of things would happen for you. Is that you would be able to think more clearly, you'd be more productive, and this would allow you to be able to focus on the things that are truly impactful for your life instead of having latent worries. And it would free you to do more deals and to grow more wealth. It would affect you personally. In probably a number of different ways. With lessening that stress, would it help you lose your temper less often? Would it help lower your blood pressure? Would it help you have more pleasure out of life? I know I do. I recently climbed Mount Kilimanjaro here. It was an amazing trip. And best of all, I didn't stress about being away from my office or my investments at all. I knew my staff could take care of my legal practice. And just as important, I knew if anything were to come up with my real estate investments, I was fully protected and I was covered. Can you say the same thing about your life right now? If not, this is something that I'd like to give to you. With the Royal Protection System, you're getting the best asset protection available, and it's created specifically for real estate investors because remember, as real estate investors, you have that 95% guarantee of being in a major lawsuit during your lifetime. It's not if, it's when it's going to happen. I can see here people are worrying and they're wondering about, how much is this going to cost to get started? And I'm going to cover pricing here in a minute. But I just want to spell this out for you guys here a little bit more. This is called, it's called the Royal Legal Protection System. And by taking the first step today, you'll be fully protected in just a few weeks from now. You're going to be getting the top level asset protection. That's the ironclad type of protection. Everything in your life will operate just as it does now. You'll have one bank account, one tax ID number for your company. All of your insurance can remain in place by just adding the land trust as an additional insured to your existing insurance policy. There's no messing around trying to figure it out yourself, or having to work with a local attorney who isn't a real estate investor themselves and in all likelihood is probably not up to speed on the latest trends and issues that are threatening your wealth. You can rest easy knowing your protection is being fully managed by us. We're leading experts that eat, sleep, and breathe asset protection exclusively for real estate investors every single day. And investors with us just don't lose money. And mostly it's because they very rarely will ever end up in court. They have a battle-tested system that works. They have me fighting on their behalf on those rare occasions when it's necessary. And the beauty of the Royal Protection System is we make it so difficult for people to sue you that it just doesn't happen. From now on, plaintiffs of attorneys will view you as a total pain in the ass. Like they will not want to sue you because they'll see how difficult it's going to be and how much they're going to have to fight through to be able to move forward with that lawsuit. And that's exactly what you want as a real estate attorney. I've worked with over thousands of clients with this, and of the few who ended up in court, how many of those do you think you lost? And what would you consider a reasonable win-loss ratio for that? I've lost 0 cases, nada, zip. And I attribute a lot to the strengths that we do in planning for the future. So that way we're going to that fight, we're in a fight with the maximum leverage, the maximum strengths we can have. So what I can tell you is not a single one of my clients who has the system, has a system in place has ever gone to court and lost. That's how powerful this system is, guys. So believe me, you don't want to miss out on this. And as an added bonus for attending this webinar, I'm extending a special discount for all who reach out to me to schedule a call. You don't have to decide what level of protection you want right now. Just hit the link that I'm about to share with you and get a call scheduled. You'll speak with a member of my team and you'll get an understanding of your specific situation during that call. We can answer any questions you have and get the ball rolling right there and see what's going to work for you. This is the special link here. It's the royallegalsolutions.com/SLLC1. If you just go into your browser and type that in, what that's going to do is take you directly to a page where you can pay for a consultation and schedule that call to speak with somebody that you get a customized plan for how your asset protection plan is going to come into place. We apply that $150 as a credit to everybody. It's just a way for us to make sure that we're all serious on that call, that we're going to give you amazing high-level information that's the exact plan that you need whether you choose to hire us or not, and that we charge for that because it's extremely valuable, and to make sure that we're really talking to people that are serious about wanting to get protected, because we're limited on how much time that we can spend with everybody as well. I want to give you guys an idea here of what the cost savings you're going to get by going to the Royal Legal Solutions /SLLC1 link. We're going to give you guys a special discounts here. You're talking about thousands of dollars off. So just to put this in perspective for you, I mean, we're talking about $500 off your operating company. We're talking $1,000 off your asset holding company. We're going to be reducing the price of 2 property transfers for you guys to give those to you absolutely for free. Your estate planning, which normally costs $2,500, we're giving you that to you guys for $1,000. Our family office, which takes care of all the corporate compliance and gives you unlimited ongoing legal support. Normally we charge $49 a month for that, and we're going to give you guys 6 months of that absolutely for free. So, I mean, we're knocking off about $4,000 just right off the top from these package pricing, guys. I mean, this is something that I very rarely will ever do, and it's what I'm coming for you guys to be able to help you guys out. Specifically, it's $3,894 on legal costs. We're knocking off right off the top for all of you guys here today, signing up for that consultation here with this link. I can guarantee you that that consultation will be the most mind-blowing consultation that you'll have ever had with a legal professional, somebody that truly knows what your business is and all of the implications around it and can walk you through it step by step, something that you just can't buy anywhere else today. So I just want to share with you guys a quick story. And it was a few weeks back that I met an investor who set up, his business structure through a local attorney. And he said me something that was really interesting. He said that they were really better at taking his money than they were about answering his questions. And when I tell people that, a lot of people laugh. But when I hear that story, it really makes me angry because there's just no excuse for it. Lawyers like that really tarnish the entire profession, in my opinion, because what it does is really turn it from somebody that's looking to help you to look at somebody that's trying to milk every dollar out of you. And so here's my promise to you is that at every single client that we have at Royal Legal Solutions will receive unlimited ongoing phone and email support about their real estate and their company, their estate plan, their shell company, their solo 401k, any service that we set up for them. Any questions that you have are answered at no additional charge. You won't be billed by us to get the information you need. Anything that relates to your investing company, your banking, your insurance, whatever the case may be, it's all free, guys. We are the one trusted source for the information that you're going to need to move forward. So you don't have to turn online or to a local attorney that has limited experience, or to a number of other sources. You'll have one source that can handle everything for you as a one-stop shop from start to finish, guys. So, and that's really part of what I do with that is, I want everybody to know that we're here for you. We guarantee all of the work that we do. I have a 100% refund guarantee with no questions asked. Right now, we actually have a number of people that have already reached out to us. I'm looking at this rolling in here. So if you haven't booked your phone call to get your consultation here today yet, this is something you're not going to see this type of deal anywhere else. That's really going to take care of you from start to finish. And it's really will put your mind at ease about this important piece so you can check it off and get it just done and out of your mind for forever. And on top of that, if any reason that you're not happy with it at all for any reason, we give you a 100% refund guarantee, up until the time that we deliver everything to you and turn everything over to you. You get to, have the benefit of getting all your money back if for any reason you're not happy. So I don't think you've ever heard of a company ever doing this before, especially one that's in the legal field. We'll show you the full playbook, then the consultation. We'll put it all together for you. And if any time we don't deliver 100% of our promises, you can just get all your money back. That's how confident we are that we're going to deliver to you in an exceptional way. And like I said before, it's completely unique. There's no risk to it. So what I'm urging you to do is to take action now while we still have a few spots left, because it absolutely will not last here, guys. A couple other pieces that I wanted to cover with you guys here today is that you're going to have this top level protection for us. There's any time in here, you'll have your money back. We have a number of resources to be able to all the information you're going to need. Securing your financial freedom to be able to know that you can operate in the world and not have to worry about lawsuits again is truly the last piece of the puzzle. And one is to create the financial freedom so you have the money to be able to spend. And the second is the peace of mind of knowing that people can't take it away from you. And that's what this asset protection is really going to give you. For anybody that would like to, you can also text in Royal to 474747. I highly encourage you to do that. That's going to give you the top 10 ways to protect your assets. It's a great collection of strategies that are even above and beyond the things that we covered here today about equity stripping and how you can create your own private mortgage company and create loans onto your own property to protect your equity and all kinds of really advanced structures. So you can really know the game plan, not just from here with these pieces of the puzzle, but what are the all of the strategies that the top level investors are using, apart from using these fundamental strategies around asset protection and company structures like we've talked about here today. So this is me, guys. I'm Scott Smith. This is my company, Royal Legal Solutions, and I just want to say thank you guys for taking the time with me here today. And I'll pass the mic, so to speak, to our friend here to go over cost segregation and fixed asset review.
Thanks, Scott, for an amazing presentation. It definitely works. I can say from experience, I actually tried to, and one of your clients reached out to me for a cost segregation. And how did I know it was one of your clients? Because when I searched the property that he was talking about, only your name and address and phone number came up. So I knew right away that it was he was well protected. So that
That's
was
excellent.
Great first-hand experience that it
Awesome.
works. Yeah, that being said, we will, well, unless it was actually your property, that could very well be as well.
Yeah, you'll always know that it's one of my clients' properties because it'll be my name as trustee of a land trust. And that's how we're able to create the anonymity for the property ownership. And I think that's what happened in your case.
Yeah, it could be. So we'll just jump right into it here. Obviously, it's late, so I'm going to try to keep it short. We'll open up for questions afterwards. You heard from Scott about asset protection, and this subject that we're going to talk about now, which is wealth protection, really couples quite well with this because cost segregation has a lot to do with tax shelter. And we'll just jump right into it. Okay, if I can move the slides here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so just really quickly about our company, Madison Specs. Specs is actually an acronym for Specialized Property Engineering and Cost Segregation. We are a larger company of Madison Commercial Real Estate Services, which mostly known for title insurance. Nationally, we're one of the biggest out there. We have an office in Dallas and Houston as well, although our main office is in Lakewood, New Jersey, and in New York City. And we have other services as well, but we're just going to jump right into cost segregation. In a nutshell, it's a strategy that allows investment property or business property owners to create tax benefits, which basically increases cash flow by accelerating depreciation on the property. And again, this does not include your personal residence, so this is only going to be for people with investment properties, investors in real estate. So what is depreciation? Okay, because cost segregation is like as one of our last webinars that we did, one of the participants said, cost segregation is like depreciation on steroids. And I love that, and we're gonna really understand why that is. So depreciation is a deduction that every single person who owns property gets based on the value of that property. Now depreciation, how you factor that number, you take the purchase price of the property, subtract a small amount, usually between 10 and 20% for the land value, because the land does not depreciate. And the rest of the building, the rest of the property has a value, which the IRS says you can take a deduction every year for the life of that property, which they gave a kind of arbitrary number of 39 years for commercial properties and 27.5 years for residential, so that includes multifamily or single family properties. And over the life course of those amount of years, you can take a small deduction, a fraction of that purchase price. And there's a way to do it through cost segregation, which is actually reallocating, reclassifying the property into separate components. So the IRS says that, yeah, the property overall depreciates over 39 years or 27.5 years, but there are actually things within the property which depreciate over a faster life. So what we're doing in cost segregation is bringing in an engineer to identify all of those assets, all of the components, every single detail of the property, and reclassify those and take those depreciation deductions at that faster rate, which allows you, in short, to take much bigger depreciation deductions in the earlier years of ownership. So, that's going to allow you to cut down your tax liability to basically zero in a lot of cases. So let's just do a quick review of what this is. The property depreciates over 39 years or 27 and a half years. We can look at things within the property. It's called 5-year or tangible property, personal property, that applies to things that, if you think about it, anything in the building that's not actually part of the structure. So that applies to appliances, furniture, fixtures, carpeting, special purpose electric. There's a lot of security systems, intercom systems, all kinds of things like that, and many, many more. There's over 12 categories that the IRS has that these things fit into. And there are something called, the second category is called 15-year land improvements. So that would include anything like pavement, landscaping, fencing, signage, curbing, even anything outside the building that is not the land itself. So that might even include if you have like a playground on your property or things like that, that would include. And all of these things, why do we need to identify the value of these things? Because they have a lot of value, which means that instead of taking a little bit deduction over 39 years, you can actually take a much larger deduction based on the value of these assets. Now, who can benefit from a cost study? We say cost seg. It's like a shortened version of cost segregation. Segregation is like a weird terminology anyways that the IRS used, but for whatever reason it stuck when they gave this name about 25, 30 years ago. Estates and trusts, just like Scott just mentioned, individuals as well, corporations, partnerships, LLCs, basically anyone can take advantage of this. Who cannot take advantage of cost segregation? Someone who's not taxable. So for example, if you have a charity, nonprofit organization that does not pay tax, will not benefit from taking tax deductions because they don't actually get those tax deductions. And when is the best time to do a cost segregation study? Now, I want to touch on this because there has actually been a new law that's come to be with the tax reform of last year, and we will get into that very shortly, so stick around. We're going to talk about what's called bonus depreciation. But most of the time, when you're newly constructing a building, when you're buying a new building, when you're doing major renovations, this is a time when you want to utilize cost segregation, when you want to utilize the tax benefits in that. Now, it might be easy to identify the value of everything in a building when you're constructing a building, when you're building a brand new building, right? You have the building plans, you have the construction budget, you have the document from the AIA, from the after you finish the property, you have to have a special document which will put it into service, and all of that you can break down the costs of everything. Now, you still may need an engineer, which the IRS highly recommends, who understands not only engineering, not only architecture, but understands the tax code, an extremely long tax code which delves into all of the different lives, the 5-year life, the 15-year life, and there are a number of others as well. Those are the two major categories. So you need to do this. So for a newly constructed property, it may be much easier, but when you buy a property, this is when it gets really exciting, because what ends up happening is the engineer comes and almost reverse engineers the property. So he's going to look at the different components within the building, surveying the property, and then applying values to all of these things. So he's going to say, hey, there was carpeting in this building. There's X square footage of carpeting. So you know what? All of that has a value, and he's going to apply that value and then take the depreciation. Say that depreciates over 5 years, that value. So we're going to take that deduction over the next 5 years. Okay, my slide's not moving over here, so we're going to be stuck on this landmark cases. So cost segregation, this is just a history lesson. I love history, but cost segregation came about 35 years ago, 35 years ago or so, in the mid-1980s, when it used to be called component depreciation, and it allowed you to take certain values of different property. But, and we skipped the slide over there, but there were a number of case studies, court cases, when it actually came into being a lot more beneficial, which is what cost segregation is today. And for more of that, reach out to me. We can get into the history. We don't have much time, so I'm going to just slide through this. However, we mentioned doing the cost segregation as soon as you buy the property in year number one. And why is that? Because you can get the tax benefits right away. You don't have to wait. And we're going to talk about shortly the bonus depreciation with the new tax law can only be taken in the first year of ownership. However, what if you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, you know what, Yonah, I bought a property about 3, 4, 5 years ago, and I never knew about cost segregation. Can I still take advantage of accelerating the depreciation? Because I'm still going to wait 39 years or 35 years left, or if it's multifamily, we still have 22 years to wait on all this depreciation. Can I still get some of that? So the answer is yes. You can do what we call a look-back study or a retroactive study, and it allows you to take all of those deductions retroactively that you missed of that accelerated depreciation and get it in the first year. And this you're allowed to do without amending any tax returns whatsoever, which no one ever wants to do. Accountants do not want to do it for a number of reasons, but this is something very important. You don't need to do that. Simple form is filed. It's called Form 3115. And as a service to our clients, and CPAs love this, that we actually do that for them. It's a kind of complicated form to fill out, but we do that as no extra cost to our clients that are doing cost segregation on properties purchased in previous tax years. And it just really allows you to change the depreciation lag. And I would like to quote one of my favorite books on the subject, which is Tax-Free Wealth from Tom Wheelwright of the Rich Dad series. And he says something very interesting on this chapter about depreciation. He says that this Form 3115 is a change of depreciation. You say, hey, I was taking what's called straight line for the past few years, the past year, which means I just took the deduction divided over 27 and a half years. Now I want to change that. I want to do cost segregation. Can I do that? Yes. You fill this form. This form you're doing, it's called electing to change it from filing it in an inappropriate way or a non-correct way, depreciation, to doing it now in the correct way. Meaning the IRS actually says splitting up the property into components, into values of 5-year, 7-year, 15-year, and 39 years actually the correct way to depreciate the property. Moving right along, I want to talk about something that really, we're going to get into the tax. Obviously, the computer's slow, so the the slides are not moving. So we're stuck on this 3115. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there are a number of different things that we can talk about these. If you have questions about these, 1031 exchanges, these are many subjects. We can really give a whole class on each one of these subjects over here. So jot them down. I can give the slides afterwards to anyone that's interested if you reach out to me to get the slide deck. But I want to focus on the most important points over here, which are something for all of people who are real estate investors, and especially who are syndicators or people who are doing investments with other people. So there's a difference, according to the IRS, how much deductions you can actually take and what those deductions can be used to offset your income. So there's something called an active real estate professional versus a passive real estate professional. An active real estate professional is someone who spends more than 50% of his time in a real estate activity, which means brokering it, owning it, managing it, constructing it, a number of other things. And that is equated to about 750 hours or more per year. So that's someone who's called a real estate professional. Now, one spouse, if you're filing jointly, only one spouse needs to have this status in order to take advantage of this, and we'll talk about what those advantages are. Someone who's not a real estate professional, according to the IRS, gets lumped in what's called a passive real estate investor, and the tax benefits are different. And here are what they are, basically. An active real estate professional can use depreciation, which is considered a passive loss, a passive deduction, that is, He can use that to offset not only the gain, not only the income produced from this property, from his properties, and any other passive investments like other properties or other business interests that are passive, or stocks and bonds, things like that, which are passive income. Not only can you use depreciation to offset that, you can use it to offset any other income whatsoever. Meaning if a person has a high-paying job, I have a lot of clients who are real estate brokers, and they're making a lot of their money from the actual brokerage deals, which is commission, which is taxed differently. Nevertheless, they can use the depreciation created through cost segregation to actually offset all of their other income. So other passive investors, they can only use the depreciation deductions to offset their real estate gains or other passive investments, like we said before. And this is, like I said, it's very important for people who are dealing with syndications to have passive investors with them. Okay, like we mentioned before, the calculation that's made by the engineer is actually a calculation that's like reverse engineering the property. We kind of discussed this. We'll get into a little more detail, but want to understand what's considered a useful life of the property. And this is something very important to understand the fundamental of cost segregation. We mentioned before, and I'm going to repeat it again. This is a tax benefit. It allows you to take more deductions. And this is one of the reasons why the wealthy stay wealthy, because this is an income sheltering strategy. Okay, so we mentioned that the IRS gave different lives to different properties, different assets within the property. So you have the 27.5-year, 39-year, that's the main structure of the building, and then the components inside. Okay, and this was given, they gave these lives 5-year, 7-year, 15-year, based on how long this thing will actually last for. Now, something that a lot of people don't understand is that, well, what happens if I renovate the property? Now, yeah, actually, I just want to touch on a different point for a second, which is how a bank looks at the property versus how the IRS looks at depreciation on the property. When a bank is giving a loan, they look at the value of the property and they look at depreciation. And they may say, hey, you know, the roof is 10 years old, so it only has a much less value. You know, the landscaping is 5 years old, it has much less value than it would be if it was brand new. So therefore, they may give their loan and may appraise the value of the property based on their own form of depreciation. Let's not get confused here. Depreciation, the IRS's name for it, has nothing to do with how the bank actually looks at the property. It has to do with the day that you purchase this property. The day you purchase the property is your base, what's called your basis, your amount of how much depreciation you can take. And this is very important. Meaning, if you have a property that was built in 1915, okay, and you bought it today, November of 2018, for let's say $1 million, okay, that depreciation value you have is $1 million minus the land, so let's say $900,000, okay? Has nothing to do with actual depreciation. Now, the concept of depreciation has to do with the useful life of the property, meaning it has to do with the fact that we all know that when you own something and time passes on, it goes down in value, which is why the IRS gave you this deduction, but it really has nothing to do with the actual value of the property, okay? I just want to reiterate that. Not to be confused over here. So let's get into the something that happened in the recent tax reform, which is something that is a hot topic. And one of these things is what's called bonus depreciation. Okay, bonus depreciation used to only be for newly constructed property. That means if you were building a brand new property or you were doing major renovations on a property, you could take the accelerated depreciation, which means things that have a life of less than 20 years. So that all of our 5-year property, personal property, that all fits into that bucket. All of the landscaping and the land improvements fit into the 15-year bucket. That's all under 20-year value, 20-year life, excuse me, which means it can qualify for bonus depreciation. Again, once upon a time, it was only on newly constructed, which means you could take, it was once used to be 50%, 50% of the value of the of those assets and take that all in the first year, 50% of that value in the first year. Now the IRS made an amazing change, which, you know, a lot of people have to say it has to do with the fact that Trump is a real estate investor, and really it has to do with the fact that Congress, you know, over 80% of Congress are real estate investors. So obviously, you know, besides the fact that real estate gives back a lot to the economy, producing jobs and creating, you know, for the banks, et cetera, a lot of industries benefit from real estate. Nevertheless, this tax law is benefiting a lot of people, which says like this: you can now take or choose to take 100% of the value recognized by cost segregation of the 5-year and 15-year assets. Take that all in the first year, 100% of it. Okay, now you might be saying, well, how much is that really? So let's just give you an example. Now, on any property that's valued over $1 million, purchased for $1 million, is going to have significant benefit when it comes to cost segregation. Why do I say that? Because usually between 10 and 30%, that's usually a general window, some are even more, of the value of the property gets put into these accelerated lives. So let me say that again. Let's just use a round number, 20%. So you bought a property for $1 million, 20% of that, $200,000 of that is now reallocated to a faster depreciation life, which means you can take those deductions, let's say at $200,000, and split that up over the first 5 years, okay? And take those deductions on top of the regular depreciation that you would already be taking. Okay, so for $1 million property split up over 27 and a half years, just round numbers, that's about $30,000 a year of depreciation. Now, when you add cost segregation to that, you may be getting an extra $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of deductions in those first 5 years, which can cut down your tax bill, like I said, virtually to zero. Now, with bonus depreciation, you have the option even to take the entire $200,000 deduction in the first year. Now, I want to just say something really important, because people think, okay, this is great, this is a deduction, but what if I don't need all these deductions? And this is really a great question, why people would say, what if I don't need all these deductions? What if I don't have such a high income tax? What if I don't have a high amount of income? And and I don't need all that in the first year. I don't need all that even the first 2 years, right? Let's say you buy a property that's vacant, it's not producing income. So the answer is, yeah, you're right, you don't. It's really dependent on the individual. And your tax situation really depends on whether or not cost segregation will work best for you. And we offer a free consultation, a free feasibility analysis for any property, which allows you to kind of see the numbers and look those over with your accountant and see if it makes sense to go ahead and pay the fee to the engineering company like ours, a few $1,000s in order to get those extra tax benefits. And like I said, you don't need to do it in the first year. You can get the retroactive benefits. You just can't take the 100% bonus in the first year. You can only take that like I said, in the first year. So let's try to focus on why is this needed? How do we stand apart, and why you need a cost segregation firm? Why can't an accountant just do it? That's really a question I get a lot. And the reason is that the IRS has a guide that they put out called the Cost Segregation Audit Guide. And like I said, they initiated this whole industry, and they initiated all the laws that go along with it. So you need an engineering firm who is not just engineers, but well-versed in this exact section of the tax code. And there's actually 13 key elements to a quality cost segregation study. And what happens is, like I said, we'll send an engineer to the property. That's one of the things. They actually need to go to the property to walk the property. The second thing is we produce a report. And in that report, which ends up being between 80 and 120 pages long, not just has all of the findings and all the details of everything in the building and all the breakdown of the value, saying the carpeting, is this square footage and is worth this amount. The window fixtures are this amount. The lighting fixtures are this amount. The tiling is this amount. And all of that, not only that, but we bring all of the rulings from the IRS, all of the documentation supporting where we got that information from and why we say that this is X amount of value. Okay? So we have a team of over 50 engineers and accountants and tax experts on staff doing this. We've been in business for 13 years almost and done over 13,000 cost segregation studies. So we have a lot under our belt, including most of the accountants on our team have had Big Four experience. We have the industry expertise. We have the IRS audit defense, which means that we stand behind a report 100%, and in the event of an audit, which no one likes to get, but it happens, we stand behind our report, and we have 100% no change in front of the IRS, meaning all of our studies that have been audited over the course of the last 13 years, they all have 100% no change. The IRS says 100%, it's good. Okay, so these are important things that you need to think about when hiring a cost segregation firm. And I think that really basically wraps it up. If there are any questions, I think it might be a good idea to open the floor for questions, because I kind of zipped through it. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. There are a few more notes over here, but like I said, I think we're good to go. The closing statement to summarize: cost segregation creates income tax benefits, creating more cash flow, and really a huge tax strategy that allows you to shelter your income and basically pay no taxes, no income tax to the IRS, which is amazing.
Yeah, guys, if you have questions, you can drop them here into the chat box. I got to tell you guys too, is that with the cost segregation studies, that's really the next level of what everybody that I work with. You know, I work with over 2,000 investors across the country right now. I'm recommending that everybody who's just generally in the framework of being able to benefit from a cost segregation study to go ahead and do that and get the information and find out what it is that you're going to need. I found that time and time again, people even thought that said, hey, well, maybe I don't need it, or maybe it's not right for me. When they went ahead and did it, they were always happy that they did, guys. So I very much encourage you to reach out here with the information that you guys see on the screen, just because I've seen so many investors benefit from it. That's why I wanted to be here on the webinar with you guys here today, to really lend my support into encouraging you to take those next steps to get the best information, so you can really, really bring yourself into the elite level of knowledge that makes you in the top 1% of real estate investors.
All right, and thank you again, Scott, for having me on here. It's really been a pleasure. And just to reiterate, we work together with your accountants. We're not an accounting firm, which is a real benefit to a lot of people. We work together with the accountants to kind of strategize and see what's the best situation for every individual. And like I said, it's not for everyone, but it definitely makes sense for a lot of real estate investors.
Absolutely. Well, I haven't seen any message here drop in for us here in the chat box. So I think that everybody's got the info today, guys. You'll have these. We'll have the recording of this presentation for everybody here. If you reach out to either one of us, we'll be able to get that to you and get you guys slide decks on that. So feel free to reach out to either one of us. Thanks you so much for coming to the webinar here today. And we'll look forward to hearing from you guys here soon. We're going to continue to offer these types of presentations for you guys of really top level advice and strategies as they become available and known to us, and we can prepare that information for you guys. So thank you so much, and we look forward to interacting with you.
Thanks.